Welcome back, everyone. I'm Julian Riccabon, here with some editors from Polyphony Lit, and we just finished watching the second half of the Studio Ghibli film Princess Mononoke, and now we're going to talk a little bit about what literary writers and editors can learn from the story. So I want to start by talking about Princess Mononoke herself. What I find really fascinating about Mononoke is kind of how she takes the form of a human, but she still identifies very strongly with the wolves, because and their cause, because this is what she's grown up with. This is what she knows since she was a baby. Yet when she escapes Irontown with an injured Ashitaka, which is right where we picked up with part 2, she decides to take him under her wing, even though he's human. When she chews his food for him and feeds it to him, it's a very animal thing to do, like something a mother wolf might do for her pups, but there's also that kind of unmistakable human tenderness in the gesture. So the way I see it, she kind of embodies the best of both worlds. But I'm kind of curious to hear, I guess, what do you find most fascinating about Mononoke's character?
I was really surprised for the end. She was like, I'm not a human, like I'm a wolf. Because it kind of felt like she had a lot of like love for Ashitaka, and also like she did kind of help like protect some of like the human people like in like the war. I don't know, I think she helped me realize like how much these wolves and like these forest spirits are like similar to the people in the movie, and it just contribute to like the grayness, I think, of like who is really like good and like evil throughout the whole movie.
I've always been kind of fascinated by those sort of stories, I guess. The one where the titular character isn't necessarily the main character. I guess if this were a book, it might preserve some of that mystery around her. Like, you can't quite get into her head, but you do see all of these fascinating observations about her from Ashitaka's perspective.
He's kind of like almost like an observer, an audience surrogate, but with enough of an arc of his own that he's a fully developed character. Mary Poppins, like she's not really the main character. She doesn't get a lot of screen time. But she's sort of definitely, I think, the draw of the film and what makes it unique, and she's more interesting if you're not inside her head and you're just kind of observing her and wondering what makes her tick. So I imagine it's probably the same with Princess Mononoke.
I also just searched up like what Mononoke means in Japanese, and it means like a supernatural being that causes suffering and death.
And come to think of it, that's not technically her name. Her name is San, right? So, so that's probably just more like a descriptor, a princess who causes destruction and death.
I did a little bit of research between part 1 and part 2. So after we watched part 1, we briefly discussed how the setting of the story is based on medieval Japan and Ashitaka's people. The Mishi tribe are based on, they're based on a real-life ethnic group of the same name. They were indigenous to Japan. So now, kind of thinking about this, kind of like a subtextual comparison between maybe, real-life historical events in Japan and the tribes of the forest, or just the conflict between the humans and the animals of the forest. The Amishi tribe, like, they were known for resisting the rule of like various Japanese emperors. They were subjugated by imperial forces. Once the imperial forces began to develop like horseback archery, which we see in the film with the samurai, guerrilla battle tactics, that was like towards the end of the 8th century, I believe. Like, the Amishi people were either defeated by the imperial forces, or they just gave in and migrated further north. So I guess modern viewers, especially those who are from Japan, will kind of watch the movie knowing that the Amishi tribe is no longer around, at least not in the way that it used to be. So I guess this in turn impacts how they might view Ashitaka and the people and the values that he's representing. Like, the colonialism background is something that a lot of viewers of the movie may not be aware of, and it might add a kind of a deeper layer of meaning to the themes about the Irontown people overrunning the forest, that kind of friendly rivalry between the animal tribes. So I guess with this new understanding of like the historical context, how did like the struggles of the Amishi people, how might those reflect on Ashitaka's struggles?
It sounds like kind of the situation with the Boers is kind of almost like a metaphor for what happened to the real Emishi people, like particularly in terms of kind of the oppressors, that the forces trying to taking advantage of them by using relatively advanced technology, and more importantly a willingness to play dirty. Weren't they just kind of luring the boars into a trap, driving them off a cliff or something? That seems to me, it sounds like something that's colonialism all across the globe. That seems like a very common tactic of that, even when it comes to native Japanese driving out other tribes and ethnic groups on the island, like they did with the Amishi. I think that's a common theme there, and I think he just sort of Miyazaki maybe disguised it a little by making it humans versus animals, but really he's talking about one group of humans against another group of humans.
Important to keep in mind while crafting magical realism or fantasy is, if you're drawing from real life cultures, real life beliefs, you gotta keep in mind that for them it may not be fantasy. It's an inherent part of their culture. So if you're crafting your own fantastical worlds that are based on real cultures, I think it's comparable the way that Ashitaka and the Amishi people have this kind of quiet form of survival. They're accepting their fate, but also not accepting their fate at the same time. So in part one, we were only just getting to know her, but now that we've seen more of her, she's really complex and entertaining. So what do you feel makes her so three-dimensional?
I think it was really hard to decide whether to root for her or not, because she's saved so many people's lives, taking all these women under her wing, and the people with the diseases, I think leprosy or something like that. But then she's also just destroying basically the whole world. But also by doing that, she's improving the quality of life for the people that she took under her wing. But I think I kind of have similar feelings for her with other characters in the story. It's really hard to decide, I think, whether it's good or bad. And even Ashitaka, in his quest to bring good, I think, to the world, he also had to kill many men.
Yeah, I think it's
Right.
also really interesting how each individual's complexity also kind of reflects the complexity of all of the groups as well, because each of those individuals have a bit of duality to them, and you have what seems to be at first two opposite sides of the forest versus the people, but you see that there's a bunch of smaller groups within each of them, and they don't all agree, and it really adds this nice complexity to have it reflected in the larger sense, and yet also in the smaller sense, where almost each character is a microcosm for the larger groups, and it's kind of a microcosm for what it's saying about the whole world in general.
There's always that kind of moral ambiguity in Miyazaki's works. And I think just, I guess, kind of knowing Miyazaki's environmentalist point of view, and the way he's passionate about anti-war movements. We've discussed before how he decided not to attend the Academy Awards and accept his award as a way of protesting the war in Afghanistan. It just makes a lot of sense with his values, how he's portraying these characters. And I guess Lady Eboshi in particular strikes me, and she's kind of posing this question that he wants viewers to consider is, in protecting the best interests of the humans, this is what Lady Eboshi is trying to do. Is it possible to do that without harming the environment, without harming the natural world? Is it possible to find a balance? So the spirit of the forest, then, I do want to talk about that. Whenever we see, like you said, whenever it first appeared, it's kind of scary, right? It's this ghost-like form of the night walker that's arriving in the forest. And then it transforms into the deer form of the forest spirit. It's not good or evil. It's a god of life and death, and the cycle that it goes through is I guess reminiscent of a lot of awe-inspiring cycles in the natural world, the seasons, the sun and the moon, food chains, water cycle. I don't know, what do you think that Miyazaki intended for the spirit of the forest to represent? What about that those final 20 minutes I guess made the story feel so satisfying? You know, what kind of plot devices work?
I expected the forest to be kind of presented as like a very like holy, like sacred, I guess, like kind of being. But if you look at the boards, like they're a bit stubborn, they're a bit hot-headed and like blind, and they all have their own flaws. And even though like these spirits are so powerful, like Lady Eboshi is able to just kill it with just by shooting a gun. But then even when this forest dies, like it's just completely like takes over and has the potential to like kill anyone. So it's really interesting to see like who really has like more power. And I think there really isn't an answer, and it just kind of shows how we all just need to like coexist. And
Yeah, I think it's like really interesting that in the first part of the movie it's kind of like the balance. It's not good or bad, but when that balance is disrupted, only then does it become something that's destructive to everything. It's like still in a way like it's not picking a side. It's almost like something that's an external force that kind of forces everyone else to kind of cooperate if they all want to survive. It's kind of like a thing that forces them to cooperate for mutual survival.
I was just going to say, to support what you said about it not picking sides, I found it really fascinating how the forest spirit, like it chose to heal Ashitaka's bullet wound, but not his curse. And you'd think that as the forest spirit, it would kind of be inclined to protect, the animals in the forest, but it still took the life of the mother wolf and Lord Akoto once Lord Akoto had turned into a demon. So I guess for me that just kind of reflected maybe some of the randomness of nature, right? It doesn't favor anybody. It, like Paris said, it just is.
Yeah, going off of what you said about like it doesn't really care about who lives or dies, like I think that's like also that kind of ties into the idea that like it not favoring anybody as long as that balance is preserved. Like that's what it seems to favor over any individual or group. It favors like the balance of everything and kind of thinking about the bigger picture.
Yeah, so I guess this is really cool because in our first discussion on part 1, it seemed like kind of our takeaway that we were developing for writers was to build fantastical worlds, it's very important to draw on realism. And here, now that we're deeper into the movie, now that we've learned a lot more about the characters, any final takeaways for writers that come to mind from what we've seen so far? It seems like another I guess key takeaway for writers that we're discovering here is like the importance of ambiguity, I guess, when it comes to individual characters, but also the conflict between the characters, right? When you're exploring external conflict, it can often be more fascinating for the readers if there's not, necessarily a clear protagonist or antagonist, or even if there is, if they have a mix of, a mixed bag of qualities. Maybe the protagonist is a bit of an anti-hero, maybe the villain kind of has a point, that just, those sort of situations, I think, can really pose fascinating questions for the readers, that'll get the cogs turning as they think about the themes and everything. So that's...
Yeah. In my experience, like with just writing stuff, I've often found that it kind of just clicks the most for me if I do like Miyazaki and kind of I put the questions in the writing. I don't put the answers in there. Like I go into writing knowing what themes it's going to be about, what like story question and what kind of subtext, themes, what they're going about. But I find that if I come down too hard on one side or picking, can spell out the answer to the question, like going into it, like something about the writing comes off as extremely, artificial or contrived, or it's just simply not as entertaining. Whereas if I'm writing the story to find out the answer, just figuring out how I feel about say the conflict of nature and the environment, or there was a story I was writing with should she break up with her boyfriend or should she stay with him? And it only really started working for me when I stopped, when I didn't know whether or not she was going to break up or stay, because I was with the character in the moment.
One thing I didn't touch on is just like how much I think Miyazaki movies makes me feel like a lot of emotions that are not really like uncomfortable, but just like you don't really know how to describe it. They're very like mixed, not in like a good or bad way. It's like kind of like the forest spirit, like how we said it's eerie, but also just like breathtaking. And also Lady Eboshi, like you feel, so much. I felt like grateful to her, I think, for like the characters in the movie that she like saved, but also just like disappointed when she just kept like going on her mission to like destroy the forest, and she was making jokes about like taking over the world. And I think as a writer, if you're able to get at those emotions that you can't really like describe with like kind of like the commercial, I guess, language we use today, like heartache, like it's not really heartache, but just like really like describing that emotion or making you feel it, like then you're really succeeding, I think, at like really touching people's hearts.
There was a scene at the end of Howl's Moving Castle where like logically I didn't understand what was going on. I kind of lost track of what was happening, but I was still almost like on the verge of tears the first time I watched that scene, because that's how great his filmmaking is, that even if you can't like consciously understand what's going on, it'll still I guess creep underneath you, and it'll make you feel something without you even realizing it.
Kind of bringing science into it, even in a context of like fantasy. I think that is like something that really like adds like depth to the fantasy, because like as I was like watching, like even just like seeing like the environment of the like the whole movie, like all of the different nature scenes, like seeing how it worked in like a very realistic way despite all of this like fantastical things happening. Like I think that was a really nice like marriage of these two like ideas you would think wouldn't go together, but like they work together really well.
So yeah, that's so many great takeaways that we talked about today. A lot of really fascinating characters. One of our favorite Ghibli movies, I'm sure. It was really great talking with you guys about it, and I hope we'll get the chance to watch some more movies in the future. Yeah, thanks for joining us, and hope you have a good rest of your week.